Hey everybody, it's What the Flick, talking about looking for glory. And if you don't know what that means,
It's a Rent reference.
You weren't paying close enough attention.
Oh. One shot.
No, stop it,
glory.
stop it,
Okay,
stop.
No, okay, fair enough.
You're not going into a song while I'm here. William Bibbiani, Alonso Duralde. Okay, what do we think about Patrick and Kevin? Because I kind of like them as a couple.
I was sitting there watching this with my girlfriend, and I was just listening to it. I was like, I hate Kevin less.
Yeah, you know,
I was
now
really
that
programmed to really despise him.
now
for
that
a
he's
while.
not cheating, like
He's
he's
great.
fine. Yeah,
He's adorable. He's got reservations about, like, do we tell people at work, but that's reasonable. He's just great. There's only one thing he does in this episode that makes me wonder, is that what's going to be the problem? And it's when they're on the balcony and they're looking out over San Francisco. And Patrick is saying things like, I remember I once looked over San Francisco and I said, I will, whatever it takes, I will be here as long as I can. Some big sweeping moment. And he's saying, yeah, I'm so glad I decided not to move back to Seattle. And I thought to myself, is that why he broke up? Maybe it has nothing to do with Kevin?
he left John for San Francisco.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe he's going to find out that he didn't leave, that John doesn't even know. Maybe about Patrick. And that would suck. And that would be yet another reason to push them apart.
Sure.
So maybe we can get him back with Richie so that they can flip it around again in season 3. And yeah, it's another arbitrary.
That's a possibility. That's a bit of a. I could see where it's a stretch, but it's also where it could be they're just planting a little time bomb to go off later. So you never know. I loved I loved the Richie Brady stuff in this episode, especially when Brady gets drunk and sort of starts talking about how they have clearly been talking about Patrick and Kevin.
I was wrong. You guys aren't everything that's wrong with the gay community. Which is, and the thing is, Patrick would have no reason to throw stones. He did that in the middle of a huge party not too long ago.
No, but it's hilarious when, because you have this. I'm sure you and Whitney or you and your girlfriend have the conversation about, like, when you're maybe getting dishy about your friends. Oh, can you believe that? And then you think, what are people saying about me?
Well, that's why I actually don't talk like that. I don't. Actually, I try to avoid it. I think I've never seen a situation on TV where that didn't bite someone in the ass, and I sort of learned not to do that. It's one of those things you learn.
Good for
TV.
you. I'm empty and shallow inside, and
we need to hang out more.
At a total catty
I want to
bitch.
hear more about this stuff.
No, so every so often I'll think, what are people saying? So it's just kind of funny to get that window of, like, oh, you've been saying that. Well, okay, yeah. But it was. I like how they sort of just kind of smile and keep going. And
no, they handled it very, very well. It was very mature.
Yeah, because if anything, it's kind of like, well, now we know.
Well, now we know. And honestly, again, we can't throw stones. Look, again, Patrick just a couple of weeks ago. Done.
Yeah, and frankly, Patrick kind of is like a 13-year-old girl who's ready to have a vagina. So not entirely, unfounded, that criticism.
Can we talk about Eddie's massive penis?
Sure.
It's massive. I was watching this and I was just like, is that? Whoa, he is a shower.
It was in shadow. I didn't really get it.
No, it was not in shadow. It was not a shadow. I think you probably thought that was some sort of, like, plank in the background behind him.
I'll have to look
You'll
again.
have to freeze frame that.
I guess.
He is very, like, if I would be like, yeah, film that. Let's do it. But wait, I want to talk about Eddie and Augie, though, because we're starting to deal with the sort of practicalities of dating someone who is HIV positive himself or not.
Right.
And Eddie is very, I'm sure he's experienced this before, one moment of weirdness, that's where it all begins, and then we're gonna go. But if anyone is ever actually gonna seriously date him who is an HIV positive, they're gonna have moments where they realize, all right, this got a little harder. I might take some adjustment.
It's hard to say. I think maybe because frankly, I think Dom is right. In this day and age, I think for a long time it was more complicated to be a sort of a sero-mixed, couple. But there is Truvada now. You can go on PrEP, and I think that yes, maybe you get 3 strikes. Maybe the first time out doesn't qualify for a thing. But I think Eddie went into this with other qualms about Augie's desire / coming to a relationship. And Eddie, frankly, went into this not really wanting to have been in a relationship anyway. He was perfectly happy to have them be friends with benefits and kind of not, thing. So I think he's entitled to be a little like, okay, you said you wanted this, you said you were ready, you're not. So I think it's fair, but I also
Sure.
think it's fair for Augie to make his case and for the to plead for another chance and ideally like become cooler about this stuff because nobody gets AIDS from a load in the eye. As far as I know.
I guess so.
If there are more recent studies, do let me know. But as
Yeah.
far as I know, that's not a thing that happens.
But it is perfectly reasonable to leave the room and rinse your eye out.
It is, because it hurts like hell.
Right?
Allegedly. Not that I would know.
No, I mean, I would, but hey. No, but again, the practicalities of life and love and
I totally understand that.
Yes.
And then obviously now we're also looking at Dom and Doris.
Just a little bit in this episode, starting to see the divide start to come.
Sure.
There's that one phone call where you can tell this is where I start being able to talk to my friend less.
Right.
This one phone call where they kind of didn't let me down, but didn't call me when they normally would have.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, hey, I just thought I'd check in.
Yeah.
Bye. That's the last phone call.
This is where the shining on begins. Yeah,
exactly.
And so it's in this weird position where on the one hand, she's underwriting this endeavor. Like the restaurant is happening because she put up the money that she inherited, which that happened real quick. Like there was no probate or.
Did you see the preview for next week?
No.
It happened real quick.
Okay, yeah.
We'll get to that. Apparently.
So that's happened overnight. But then at the same time, she's more ensconced now in this relationship with Malik, and so she's not going to be there as handy, and so he's kind of benefiting from her largesse and at the same time losing her intimacy as a friend at the same time.
Yeah, I liked there's that moment where he's just standing outside his chicken window and you can hear all the sirens. And it's just that way of just saying, oh, this isn't going to be the best place for a chicken window.
Yeah.
It's more of a rob me window.
I was going to say, there's going to be a lot of metal grates going up behind the chicken window.
No, I was interested in the whole video game thing because they clearly programmed that game pretty quickly.
And hadn't finished it yet.
And hadn't finished it yet, which, and you go to E3. I've been to E3. I've never played a game at E3 that didn't have a devastating bug in it. So that in and of itself is not a killer. But I thought it was interesting that the first reaction everyone had is, oh, so it's divisive and reductive and puts all gays in competition with each other for their stereotypes.
And that's a fair cop, I think.
It is.
I mean, I'd say if they're up to something beyond that, then it's up to them to actually explain that and defend that better than they're doing. Because just looking at what anybody else at that convention would have seen, that grid behind them of the characters and the way they describe it, it's like, that's exactly what it sounds like.
It is exactly what it sounds like. And it made me wonder if maybe looking is going to get a little meta on us. Like when Seinfeld pitched a show about nothing. And here we are, we're making the show for this community and not everyone's agreeing with it. Not everyone says this is my experience. And but we had the best of intentions and we thought this would be a really cool idea.
I don't know. I think
it's obviously not a one-to-one relationship.
Sure. I think they're smarter than that. I mean, I think they're fully aware that that's a thing, and in a sense, they might even be putting some of those complaints that they got about season 1 in the mouths of certain people.
Exactly.
But I mean, I'd say this show, in terms of bringing in characters of color, talking about HIV, I love the fact that the guy who was giving them the hardest time about it at Gamer X was in a wheelchair and it was never discussed, and that the wheelchair guy also was developing the Find the Glory Hole app, which is a whole other topic unto itself.
Yeah, a great topic.
Yeah, I think that, I think this show's been very smart about diversifying, but never in a way that feels reactionary, like, oh God, we got these complaints, now we have to throw in these 4 characters, blah, blah, blah. To me, it feels very organic. I think that a lot of the complaints about the first season were that typical kind of thing of, I don't see my specific life on this show, therefore it is bullshit. And it is impossible for the one gay show, like solidly gay show on television right now. I mean, there's other ones with gay characters or gay, subplots or whatever, but I mean, this one is through and through, capital G. It's not going to be everybody's experience. Yes, it's a specific set of people in a specific, urban setting. But, that's what literature is. That's what art is. You have characters that are placed very firmly in time and space and class and whatever else, and you use them as a prism for people to see themselves in and as a way to talk about life as it is lived on a universal scale. End of sermon.
Very good.
Sorry,
very nice.
I read too much of this shit on Facebook, and it drives me up the wall.
No, it was well said. It was well said. Before we head out, I just want to make one note, which is one thing I really appreciate about Looking. And it's hard to do in a lot of other shows and books and any other media where someone has to come up with an idea. An idea for a new business venture, a new app, a new video game.
I'm going to write a
movie.
song.
Yeah, song maybe not so much. But the idea is you have to come up with someone who is an entrepreneur, who has an idea that no one's had before, that is a good idea.
Sure, that doesn't sound ridiculous in the context of, I know what you mean.
And it's very, very hard to come up with one that sounds even remotely plausible, let alone like an actually good idea. And here we have a couple. Honestly, the Glory Hole app, I buy that exists. I buy that 100%.
I buy that it probably already exists.
It probably does. And even just the whole gay competition card game. I totally buy that too. If anything, I feel they need to go further with it because honestly, they're really lame pictures. I'm like, go nuts. Go complete full, anime exaggerated caricatures.
Yeah, if you're going to
Have them do
archetype,
crazy finishing moves and them throwing dragons at each other, because then no one could misinterpret it as we're taking the archetype seriously.
Sure.
So they're only like one step away from that being a legitimately great app.
Right.
So
and it's a work in progress. They could go there. Who knows?
It is, but I saw something. I was watching the Palm Beach Story yesterday with Joel McCrea.
Love that movie.
It's such a great movie, but he's an entrepreneur and he has the dumbest idea ever, which is
the
it's an
airport.
airport that is suspended over New York City on a giant metal net, and the planes just land on the net, and people just walk over to the buildings to walk down. Stupid, impractical, and dangerous. So this is better.
Nits Toto.
So Looking is better than Preston Sturges.
Well, in its own tiny way. All right, so 2 more episodes left. We may not be here next Monday because we're moving studios again, but we're
moving back
to the original studio.
A constant cycle.
Yes, we're not homeless. We hope to have a recap for you at some point later in the week. If not, we'll be back in 2 weeks with the final 2 episodes. Thanks for joining us.